Hello and welcome to this training for today for Microsoft Planner Introduction. My name is Scott Kinsella. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. A little bit about me before we get started with this today. First off, yep, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer for over 10 years, and I specialize in the Microsoft Office and end user products. So basically everything with Office 365, SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, Word, Excel, all that sort of good and fun stuff. But overall, I've had 23 years experience dealing and working and teaching with the Office products. I've been around pretty much every version since Office 4.3. Currently, I work for a company called Planet Technologies based in Germantown, Maryland, and most of my professional time right now I spend working with government clients. So in this class today, what we want to talk about is give you an introduction to Microsoft Planner. This is an application that is available in your Office 365 tenant. You may or may not have access to it based on the type of subscription that you have, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. A relatively kind of simple set of topics I want to get today. Basically, first off, how do you get to Planner? Where is this application located? How do we access it? Then we want to take a look at Planner's interface and elements. How do we get around in Planner in the first place? How do we start off creating a plan? What's the, what are some of the steps that we need to do to get that process started? How do we add people and tasks to our plan? How do we update our task details? Then how do we organize our tasks? I think one of the nifty things about Planner is it's very flexible as far as how you can organize things. There's actually lots of different ways that you can do it to really fit people's different styles and needs for organizing things in a plan. And then we'll take a look at, once you have that plan, we'll take a look at a plan's progress, how to track the tasks and what's all going on with that. And I couldn't quite fit it on this slide, and depending on our time that we've got today, we'll see how much integration we can get into with Outlook and Teams. That's going to depend on the amount of time that we have today. All right, so let's get started with Planner. So I don't have any more slides, so let's just jump right over to jump right over to Office 365. So Planner, unlike other parts of Office 365, is something that is completely done in the web browser. So there are some aspects of your Office 365 subscription and products that you have that are available both on the desktop and online. So for instance, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Outlook all have web-based versions, and they have desktop versions that you can start from your Start menu. There are some applications, though, in Office 365 that are completely web-based. There is no desktop equivalent for them. They literally only run in your web browser. And a couple of those are like Microsoft Forms, which hopefully we'll do a class on that soon. And as for today's discussion, Microsoft Planner. So the only way to get to Planner and to work with it is to log into your Office 365 account. You can do that by going to www.office.com or you can go to portal.office.com. I'm kind of a fan of going to Portal. That way I can just type POR in my web browser, and I've done it enough times that it knows that's where I want to go. But those are both acceptable methods for getting to Planner. And once you get in there, I'll also show you there's yet another shortcut way to get into Planner. Now, if you log into your Office 365 account and you don't see Planner on this screen, don't panic, because this screen, when you do log into the Office 365 portal, doesn't always show you all your applications. It shows you the ones that you've been using the most or working with the most. So you might need to click on All Apps right here to see it in the list. So if you click on All Apps, hopefully you'll see it somewhere here in the list. You'll see Planner somewhere amongst all these applications that you have. If you don't see it here, you don't have it. Planner, like many other aspects of Office 365, especially in a government or commercial environment, your administrators and people that run your client or run your system can say, look, we're not going to let people get into this app, or we're not going to license that app, and so on and so forth. So you might get into there, you might get this far and go, I don't see Planner. You don't have access to it. And unfortunately, that's all I can say about that. Or there's nothing you can do about it beyond that, okay? You may want to talk to, if you are in a commercial environment or government, you might want to just go to your Office 365 admins and say, hey, I'd like to start working with Planner. Can you make that available? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Very likely, if you're already using Teams and other certain aspects of Office 365, I don't see a big reason why they would disable Planner. It's more likely that if you don't see Planner, you're probably also not going to have Teams and a few other things. Okay, so that's how you get to it. So once you start up Planner, it will launch into a new window and you will see something that looks like this. So this is the Planner interface. The first time you actually come in here, though, as with a lot of these applications, you'll see there's going to be a couple of welcome screens to go through. I've used this enough times that it's not going to do that anymore. You can see I've got a little promo here for using the mobile version of Planner. Not going to get into that in this session, maybe in an advanced session. Also, again, if you work in a government environment, it's very likely that you can't do the mobile component of Planner. Government clients, and GCC, often just a lot of that mobile stuff doesn't work for security and compliance reasons and so on and so forth. So we're not going to touch upon that at all today. So overall, like many things in Office 365, the interface is not complicated. Those of us that have been around the Microsoft block for decades now, like myself, we're so used to many of these things in Microsoft just being complicated and just lots and lots of features and lots of options. Hopefully you're starting to notice that in things like Forms and Planner and Teams and other places that it's a very simple interface. There's not a lot of stuff here, which you may find a bit annoying as we get into this. You might be like, oh, well, why aren't there lots of other bells and whistles that I would like? I think often it's a conscious choice. They're trying to keep it simple without making it overly complicated so it can run in the browser. So that's something to keep in mind. And quite honestly, if you find yourself getting to the point where you're stretching Planner to its limits, at that point, you probably need to be using Microsoft Project or something else for planning your projects. I think if you keep in mind and set your expectations of, look, this is a lightweight version of tasks and projects and things, you won't be disappointed. But if you come in here looking for Gantt charts and analyses of resource allocation and all that other sort of stuff, you're going to be a bit disappointed. But if you just need a lightweight way to track tasks in a project that's going on, and you don't need all that overhead of project. I mean, project is a great product, but I mean, let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff in there and it's a lot of work. I think you'll find Planner as a very very easy alternative. And the other nifty thing about Planner is, especially if you're in an environment that's using Teams, you'll see that Planner really can integrate with your team in a lot of ways. So through your team, it's a way that you can track your tasks and track what's going on, possibly in your team, in a very easy way. And again, if we've got time in this session, we'll get to some of that integration. If not, that'll just be for the Planner Advanced class, right? I'll just come up with another class. So like many of the applications in Office 365, it's a pretty simple setup. We've got our navigation bar across the top, which basically here in Planner just tells me, look, I'm in Planner, and you've got the what they call the Office waffle menu in the upper left-hand corner that allows me to get to the other applications. A few things over here in the upper right-hand corner for notifications and settings for Planner. We'll talk a little bit more about those later. And then we've got a standard navigation pane, content pane type thing going on down here. Over in the navigation pane right now, you see it's divided up basically into 3 sections. In our top section, we have things like starting a new plan. Your Planner hub is where you'll actually be brought to every time you come in here. So that's kind of like your home section, which to me, this is a little weird that it's not the top option, but hey, what do I know? And then there's another view here called My Tasks. So once you do start getting involved in different plans, you can have an easy way to look across all of your plans to see what are the things that are assigned to me. There's a favorites section, pretty straightforward. If you have a plan or whatnot, or plans that you are participating in, if you've got a lot of them, you can mark some as favorites. I mean, it's just like your web browser or anything else. If there's certain ones that you always want to appear here in the favorites, you can pin it or put them in the favorites category. And then below that, just like we have in the Office applications like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and so on and so forth, there's a list of recent plans that you've worked with. So that's this list. list. As you can see, it's pretty short here because I don't have a lot of stuff in here. So this demo plan is the only one that I have. That's pretty much it. The only other thing that you might want to work with down here is that there's a little arrow down at the bottom to expand and collapse the navigation pane or menu pane on the side. So if you want a little bit more room to work with things here, you can expand and collapse that. I'll keep it open for right now so that you can see all the stuff that's there. And you can see there's a thing down at the bottom there to get the Planner app. So if you do want to install, yes, there is a Planner app that you can put on iOS and Android, and you could access all things about your plans from there. Again, just be aware, especially if you're a government client, you're probably not going to be able to use Planner, the mobile version of Planner at all. Oh, sorry, almost lost my papers over here. My little guide. Okay, so if it's your first time in here, you are going to want to create a plan. So let's go up to New Plan and kind of get this process started. Now, basically, you just give a new plan a name, but there are some things we want to think about first before we do that. And that is that Planner is, amongst many things in Office now, is tied to another feature called Office 365 Groups. Okay, and there's something very important about that we need to think about. Now you'll see right here it says new plan, and we can give that plan a name, but right here it says add to an existing Office 365 group. Here's the deal. When you create, so first off, let me say this. Don't come into Planner to use this for your own personal use. That's not what this is for. This is for group usage. If you need something to track your own tasks, either use Outlook tasks, SharePoint tasks, or use Microsoft To Do. That is meant to be your personal task manager. With Planner, we're dealing with other people. This is not really meant to be for yourself. Now, you could use it that way, but it's not meant to be used that way. Planner is meant to be used with groups of people or teams. And so there's other things that are tied to this. And one of the things is this whole business of Office 365 groups. So before I go any further here, let me bring up another slide. So I actually need to exit out of here for a moment, and I want to open up, let's see here. I should have had it open ahead of time, but I did not. So let's open this up real quick. Sorry about that. Let's go to this PC. Let's go up. And let's go to Office 365, and here it is. I should have had that open, I apologize. Okay, before we get too far into Planner, I need to talk about a feature called Office 365 Groups. I can do a whole class on this, and at some point I probably will, but let me give you the quick primer about what's going on here. Have you ever in Outlook had a distribution list and said, oh man, I got this group of people in Outlook. Wouldn't it be great if I could use that group of people for something else, like not a distribution list, it is a distribution list, something over in Word or something on SharePoint or whatever else, okay? You're like, wow, I wish I could use that list for this. And unfortunately for many, many years, that really, really was the case. So what Microsoft has come up with X number of years ago is this concept of Office 365 groups. And what it's basically doing is taking a distribution list out of Outlook. It's taking that concept and pulling it out of Outlook and making it available across applications and kind of making its own separate thing. And that way you can say, all right, I want to use that group in this application, and I want to use it over in this application, and I want to use it in this application. So I can create that group of people, and I'm not stuck with just using it in Outlook. I can use it in lots of places. And that's really what's going on with Office 365 groups. So if you've come to the Teams, any of the Teams trainings that I've done, or if you've watched them here on YouTube, when you create a team, What you're actually really doing is creating an Office 365 group. And that group can actually then be used in other places. And depending on where you create a plan, depending on where you create the group, certain things get created for you automatically. So for instance, if I'm in Teams and I create a new team, what I'm really doing is creating a group. But what is also happening automatically for me is that a SharePoint site is getting created and some resources in Outlook are being created. Okay, and all this happens automatically in the background. It varies what gets created, again, depending on where you create the group from. So if I go into Planner and I create a new plan with a bunch of people on it, I'm going to basically just get the plan. It's just going to be tied to that plan. Though, now that the group has been created, I could use that group that I created in Planner. I could use that in SharePoint. I could use it in Teams. I can use it in Forms. I can use it in Outlook. And actually, there's more places. I just didn't put them all on here. So that's part of the magic of this idea, is that you create this group that then you can reuse in lots of places. That's kind of nifty, okay? So if I do go into Planner and I create a new plan and I add people to the plan, what I'm really doing is I'm adding people to an Office 365 group with the same name as the plan. And then later on, I could go over to Teams and say, oh, you know what? I want a new team. Why don't I just use the same group that I had over in Planner? Okay. Now, to give you a little advice, if that's your thought process, don't do it that way. It's actually kind of easier to create the group over in Teams or Outlook, which I don't have time to get into that here, and then use that existing group in the other applications. And there's technical reasons why, but basically here's Scott's advice. Think outside the box for a few minutes if you're planning on using Planner. In that, if you're going to get a bunch of people together to do something, think about, would I also maybe want to use Teams and some Outlook stuff along with that? And if that's the case, I would actually recommend going into Teams first or Outlook and create the group from there, and then use that group over in the other places as the basis for the things that you're doing, okay? Again, it's not wrong to create the group from Planner, but more things happen in the background if you do it from other applications that just make it easier in the long run, okay? Just a piece of advice. You don't have to take it if you don't want to. So that explains a bit more than this whole business where I come into, let me just restart this in case it timed out. That explains a bit more this whole business here of creating a plan, and then it's saying add to an existing Office 365 group. Okay, if I don't click that and I just create a plan, then that plan is just going to create its own independent group, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if this plan is associated or could be associated with a group of people that already exists, then I should just use that group. So actually what I'm first going to do is click add to an existing Office 365 group. And when I do that, I get the different groups that are in my tenant that I could pick from. So in this case, there are two existing groups. One's called Demo and the other one is called Demo Modern. Don't worry about that. I'll just use my Demo group. And then I now end up here at Plan Name. See where I end up here? Okay. And if I'd written a plan name in the first part, it would just carry over to here. Let me restart that for a reason. Oops, let's click New Plan. Because I want you to notice this option here, this public versus private. That option went away when I picked the Office 365 group option because the group itself can be either public or private. So when I say add to an existing group, that setting automatically just carries through. Okay. There are some options here, which we will see. It's just basically writing a description. Be careful though in your setup where you work. It's possible to add more things to that options section. So if you're using this in a commercial or government environment, you may want to click that options to make sure or to check for if there are other things that your place of work is asking for or requiring as part of setting up your plan. Okay, for me, this is my setup here. I haven't done anything like that. All right, so I'm gonna do the add to existing Office 365 group because personally, I think that's the best way to create your plan. So again, if you don't have any groups yet, then I would highly recommend maybe creating a team or creating an Outlook group first and then associating your plan with that group. You don't have to do it that way, but that's just my advice. Take it or leave it. All right, so I'm going to add to an existing group. I'm going to use my demo group that's already there. And for my plan today, let's call this Friday Fiesta. All right, it's Friday. We should all celebrate. Okay? You're going to, easy for me to say, your groups can have multiple plans. That's also kind of a valuable part of this feature. Okay, so we're associating this plan with the demo group that I've got. And again, that group could have any name, but I'm going to have a specific plan for that. Okay. Also, like I mentioned in the Teams class, I try to avoid the redundancy of calling something what it already is. So for instance, in Teams, I try to avoid calling my team the something team. And there's reasons for that, again, because of the Office 365 groups deal, that I try to avoid calling a team the something team because it is a team, we get that. And I try to avoid doing the same thing here in Planner. I try to not call this the Friday Fiesta plan. It's like, look, we know it's a plan. It's in Planner. So I'm just going to call it Friday Fiesta. And again, there's technical reasons in the background for that. Take it or leave it as a suggestion, okay? Personally, it's like, look, we know it's a plan. And yes, we know it's a team and so on and so forth. So I like to leave those things out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create plan. Creating your plan, dun, 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 and ta-da, here we are. Now we are in the kind of main work screen of my plan. Now from this point, there are actually a lot of ways that you could go depending on what you did. So for instance, if you didn't base this on a group, you could just go and start to add members, or you could start to create tasks. I'm going to go a certain way here, but from this point on, there's really no specific order for certain things. So I'm just going to try to do it in a logical manner that at least kind of makes sense from this level. But remember, you don't have to do things necessarily in the order that I'm going to do them. All right, before we start doing anything though, let's kind of explore now the change to our interface. So I'm looking at this Friday Fiesta plan. It's listed up here, and you've got basically now a navigation bar for the plan as well as a work area down below. This is a little bit like how Teams is set up as far as the different tabs that you would have on a channel. So notice that in the plan, I have 3 tabs up along the top. I've got what's called the board. Then I've got something here called charts, and we'll deal with charts once we get some tasks and things in here. Then there is a schedule, which allows me to see the start and end dates for the different tasks that are in my plan. There's a 3-dot menu here with lots of other options that I can get to related to my current plan. We'll talk about a few of these later. And then over here, I've got the different some different filters and drop-down menus. Here is where I can add members to my group or my plan. So if again, if this was a brand new plan, this is where I would add the people to it, and I would create that new group. Since I am already using an existing group, all the people are already here because I grabbed that group and said, okay, I want to use that group. Ta-da! All the members are in here now. Okay, we'll talk about filter and group by bucket a little bit later, but that's kind of how to change my views down here. I don't have anything yet, so they're not going to do a whole lot. Okay, all right, so in Friday Fiesta now, I've got here this ability to add a task. And there's this bucket here called to do. And we'll talk more about buckets in a little bit. But let's just start off with the easiest thing to do, and let's get a task going. So I'm going to click here and add task, and you get a very quick basic task box. The way this works is that I could actually right now just kind of mass add tasks with their basic information. So right now, if I give this task a name and press enter, what will happen is that that's going to pressing enter is going to hit the add task button, and I could actually just create a bunch of tasks really quick. Okay, that's what that will do. If you don't want to create lots and lots of tasks, just write the one and then click add task. All right, so let me throw a few of these on here. So let's research party vendors. Okay, let's take a poll. Okay, find out what days we want to do the party. What else? Let's do one more. We want to take a poll, research party vendors, and crowdsource a theme. Crowdsource a theme. Of course, that's kind of the same as a poll, but whatever. Okay, and let me add that task. Okay, so now I've just got 3 basic tasks right there. I can just kind of boom, 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 just get the basic task information there. There is, though, a lot more information that we can add to a task. Right now, it's just like, look, I'm just creating the subjects, and there we go. And again, the order now that you follow is really up to you. If you want to create a task and then go into the details like I'm going to talk about here in just a second, you can do it that way. Or if you just want to quick mass add a bunch of the high level tasks and then you want to go back and deal with stuff, again, up to you. You do you. Work, do what's that. Do what's best for you. So let's come in here to the research party vendors. And all I'm going to do is basically I'm just going to click on that task. So now you see that there's a whole bunch of fields here and things that we can fill out. As with a lot of things in Microsoft products, do what you need to do, but don't go overboard. So what I mean by that is you don't have to fill out everything here. Actually, quite honestly, you've already filled out what's required, and that is the name of the task. That's it. That's all you have to do. Of course, there are many more cool things that we can do with this, but don't feel overwhelmed. So don't feel like you have to come in here and do all the stuff that's here. You absolutely don't. These things are all here as options for you to organize and deal with your tasks however you want. So use what applies to your situation and don't do any more. Okay, because it can easily, and that's the same thing I say with Microsoft Project when I teach it, is that it's very easy to get overwhelmed in Microsoft Project and go down the rabbit hole of lots and lots of different fields and things to fill out. But the reality is, if you don't need all that information, don't take the time to do it. Okay, so stick with what you need and then go further with it. Again, my opinion. All right, so what do we got here? Well, at the top, we've got an assign, but let's worry about assigning stuff later. So let's take a look at the different drop downs and things that we've got here. First one is called bucket. I'm going to talk a little bit more about buckets later. So right now, I've only got what's called the to-do bucket. So we'll talk about organizing our tasks and buckets a little bit later. Next, we've got a progress drop down. There's only 3 options here. Basically, not started, in progress, and completed. Unfortunately, you cannot create, like on hold or any other sort of intermediate status. There are other products that do allow you to kind of create your own statuses for things like SharePoint task lists allow you to do that. Right now for Planner, it's just the 3. It's either it's not started, it's started, it's in progress, or it's done. That's it. Those are only 3 options. There's no way right now to add other ones. You've got a priority, low, medium, important, and urgent. That's pretty straightforward. The default is medium. And then we've got things here for start date and due date. I think between them, of course, due date is the most important one, like when do you really need this done by, but also notice there's a start date. For some tasks, maybe you don't have to worry about it until a certain time, or maybe like with the take a poll, we're gonna have that poll open for just a week. So that really is going to start on a certain date and it's gonna be done by a certain date. Okay, up to you what you want to do. So maybe for right now, for the research party vendors, I'm just going to select a due date. So for right now, let's say that's due a week from now. Let's put that on April 3rd. Okay. All right, the next thing I can do here is just write notes about the task. So anything I want to say about this or expand upon or whatever, I can just write notes here. That's it. It's a free note-taking space. Anybody can come into this and write stuff here. We need to come up with a list of at least 4 vendors that can supply supply the materials we need for this party. Okay, whatever you feel the need to write there, okay? So there's just our notes section. You can kind of run that however you want, all right? Just a free spot to write stuff. Next, we have a thing here called a checklist. So this is interesting. In some ways, you could use this like tasks within a task, okay? So, or you could use it as just things to do. I don't know how else to explain it. So here's what we're saying. Or you might not use it at all there. That's what I really kind of meant to say. So here's the deal. The checklist here could be maybe steps or things that we have to do for this larger task of research party vendors. Maybe there are other tasks that we need to do that kind of all roll up into the research party vendors. One way you could accomplish that is that you could create a checklist of the things that need to be done. Realize though it's just a checklist and you're not going to be able to have like progress, priority, and start date because they're all going to be part of this overall larger task. If it's something that you really need to separate and track progress on and assign differently, then you probably don't want to do that as a checklist item, but rather a separate task. Because if, as I do start to assign people to this task, you don't assign people to the individual things on the checklist. Those are things that anybody on the team or anybody that's assigned to this would be able to do. So here's a case where you may want to think about how do you want to organize things. Would you like your tasks in the plan to be like big high-level tasks and then you'll use checklists for the individual small things? Or do you just not want to use checklists at all and you're going to make separate tasks for everything in the plan? Or do you want to use a mix and match? I mean, it's up to you. There's no, like they say about Reese's, there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's cup. In here with Planner, there's no wrong way to do it. Organize things as far as what's going to work best for your situation. Okay, but if I did want to have a checklist here, I could say, okay, so what could be some tasks? Checklist items, research party vendors. Do a Google search, and I can just hit enter to create new ones. Write up list of vendors in a Word document. Okay, attach document to this task, and then let Scott know when we're done. There we go. Those are the checklist items that we've got here. Okay, so I got four items on the checklist. These are all things that should be accomplished in order to say that this overall task is done. Okay, again, you may not want to use that feature at all. Maybe those all should be separate things. That's totally up to you. But realize you don't assign people to the checklist items. They're going to be assigned to anybody that you assign the task to. Okay. And you can change these. You can also, if after a while you're like, ooh, that really should be a bigger task. Notice here that when I do hover over these, there's what looks like an upload button, but actually what it is that you can convert a checklist item to its own task. So if after a while you're like, oh, that checklist item is turned into its own big thing, let's pull that out and make it its own task. You can do that. So you've got a little upload, what looks like the upload button, but it's make a new task, and then I can trash items here. All right, let's just keep working down. Next, attachments. Your tasks that are in your plan, you can actually add documents here that are relevant to that actual task. Okay. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this, and that's because this creates another place where documents might get buried. My opinion is that if you do want to add attachments or you do want to have documents, rather link to things or connect to things that are on SharePoint. Notice when I do add attachment that there's three options: a file, a link, or SharePoint. My advice is don't create yet another place where people have to find documents, okay? You know that frustrates people. Now, you could call this both ways. It might be like, well, I want them to have a particular document and I want to hunt for them. Well, that's what the link and the SharePoint are for, is that the relevant document I could get to, I could have it somewhere else and just put the link here so it's easy to get to. But if you start just putting files in a task, well, this is about the only place you can find them. And that could be difficult if you're over in a team or trying to do anything else. And again, I mean, I have the same problem with Outlook. I don't like having attachments buried on emails in Outlook. It just makes things hard to find there. I'm always a person that's like, look, files should all be in a place where we put files and do other stuff in other places. So if I did want to maybe link to something, I could click link here, and I would just need to copy and paste a web link from wherever to here. It could be a link to, again, something on SharePoint or something on OneDrive or whatever. Or I can click and say SharePoint, and that's going to bring up any SharePoint site that's actually tied to the existing group. So that's kind of cool. Again, another advantage, I talked about that earlier, another advantage of tying your plans to an existing group is because now I could put the documents for this task, I could link to things that are already in the supporting group's SharePoint site. There you go. And that means we could also get to these through Teams and other places. Your choice. My advice, link to things, don't add new things. Okay, next, comments. Now you might be like, wait a minute, we got a notes section up above. What's the deal here with having a comments section? Well, the deal is that these are actually different, okay? Here's how they're different. The notes field is literally just a place where anybody can type anything, and edits and things are not tracked, okay? So basically anybody that's in this plan can come into this task and they can change things that are in that notes section, and it's not gonna say who changed it. There's no version history, there's none of that. The comments section, though, is like conversations and posts that are over in Teams, in that I can come down here and I can write a comment about where I'm at with this task, or we can have a discussion going on, and those comments will have, they'll be tagged with my date, with the date and time of the comment and the person who did it. Okay, so get a move on here, get a move on. We need to get started. Need to get started ASAP. Okay. And then I can send that. And as you'll see now, there's going to be a comment history down here at the bottom. And depending on your notification settings, a comment on a task may generate an email to the people that are assigned to that task so they get something in Outlook. That feature doesn't work yet in the government client, and I'll talk more about notifications later, but overall, a lot of the notifications in GCC or the government cloud don't work, which is kind of annoying, though. In answering something Kristen and I, or in talking about something Kristen and I were talking about earlier, oddly enough, there's some ways around that with Power Automate. But for right now, a lot of the default notifications, at least as far as emails, don't work on the government side. But if you're on a commercial or personal side, they will work. So the difference between comments and notes, again, is this. Notes is a free-for-all. Anybody can write anything they want. It's not tracked, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't generate notifications. Comments are tracked. They are tagged with your name, the date and time, and those can generate notifications and emails about that task. It's a discussion. It's a conversation, just like the conversations that you have over in Teams, okay? All right, so now that we've gone through all of that, I'm sorry, let's come back up to the top. There's there's another thing that we can do as far as, you know what, let's hold off on task organization. I'm sorry, let's hold off on that. All right, now let's come to the assign part of the task. So now I'm kind of ready at this point to assign people to this. Now again, since I've tied this plan to an existing group, I've already got now a pool of people that I can assign this to. If you did not associate your plan with a group in the beginning, if you click on assign, you're going to have nothing here. So you would have to go to the whole add members part and which we're going to cover. You'd have to go there and start adding people before you can add them to your tasks. Again, you can do this in any order that you want. Again, I think the easy, as I said way at the beginning, it's almost always better to tie your plan to an existing group, because then a lot of built-in things are there for you already, including, ta-da, now I've got like 60 some people I can pull from. I think it's 42, right? If I go on assign, it doesn't show me here. But now basically I can just go into this list and I can assign anybody that's part of that group to this task. All right. So for right now, I don't know if any of you are in, Susan, I think you might be. Let's see here, let's scroll down. Let's see here. Where is Susan? ST, ST, ST. Oh, no, you're not. Oh, okay. Ms. McGrath, you're not on here. Fine, I'll just pick some of my other generic students here. By the way, folks, for those of you that are on the call, if you do give me your email address, I can add you to the demo group, which would get you access to the team that I've created, and you can play around with that team. All right, so let me just assign a couple of people to this task. So I can just go through right now, search, scroll, however, and let me assign students 1 and 3 to this task. All right, so now I've got some people that are assigned to this. All right. I'm good to go here. Let me go ahead and close the task. So now you can see that on the panel here, there are some things now that appear on the card for this task. There's now some more information that appears on it. I can see that there is, people are assigned to it. I could add more people. Some of the information I can actually change from here. So I could change the due date. I could change I can get to the checklist and so on and so forth right from the card, as well as there's a 3-dot menu for lots of other fun little things that we could do with that task. Oops, I didn't want to open that. All right, let's do some of these other ones just real quick so that we can do some real examples here. So let's assign this task to let's do this one to students 2 and 4. All right. And let's say, we'll just leave that in the to-do bucket. This is due, let's give that a due date of the 9th. And I think that's good enough for right now. So we'll close that. And let's do we need to do crowdsource a theme right now. So let's assign everybody to that. Unfortunately, there isn't an easy way to pick a lot of people here. But you know, just have to deal with it. So let's put all the students on that. And number 5, okay, that should be in progress right now. Let's put a start date of today, and we need that to be done by the end of the month. Okay, and that's a high priority task. So let's say that's important. Okay, good enough. I am happy with that. By the way, you'll notice there's no save command on any of these tasks. When you create stuff, just as a lot of, this is a tough thing to get used to, and a lot of things with Office 365 is that there aren't save commands, which is so, especially for those of us that have been around for a long time, a little unnerving. Like, wait a minute, did it save it? Yeah, it did. All you gotta do is close it, and it's all based on online stuff, so you don't need to worry there. All right, any questions? Again, you guys can ask questions at any point while we're going on here. Just type them in the Zoom group chat window. Otherwise, I was just gonna keep on talking and keep on going. All right? Okay, so let's now talk a little bit about task organization. There are 2 ways that you can organize your tasks that are going on in your plan. One of them is by way of something called buckets, and the other one is by something called labels. You can use either or both or neither, okay? It's kind of up to you. So right now, I don't know if you've noticed, but everything that I am putting here in this current plan is actually in a group called to do. And actually, rather than using the word group, I should use the correct word, and that is, it's a bucket. We don't want to use the word groups because groups are used somewhere else. So all 3 of these tasks that I have created for this plan are in a bucket now called to do. And that's the basic bucket. Now, if I hover over the to-do bucket, you'll notice there's a 3-dot menu, and I can click that, and I can click that. Hello, there we go. And I could rename that. I could give the to-do group a different name, right? And maybe you're just fine with this. Maybe you don't need to further organize your tasks. It's completely up to you. Now, the next thing that we can do is that I could actually have additional buckets here for the tasks. That's what the add new bucket is. So I'm actually going to add a new bucket here, and all I got to do is just give it a name. So let's call this priority stuff, okay? And that is now a new bucket that's in my plan, okay? I could add tasks directly into that bucket, or I can drag tasks around on the interface here. So for instance, this crowdsource a theme, maybe I'd like that to be in the priority bucket, okay? Well, what I can do is just grab that task and drop it on any bucket. Okay, I can just drag and drop things where they need to go. They're still all tasks. They're still all equivalent. The buckets are just a way to organize. Now, you can organize your buckets however you want. You want to have like a phase 1 bucket, a phase 2 bucket, and a phase 3 bucket? Sure. Do you want to have buckets for the different priorities? Great. That's a little redundant because there's some other ways to look at stuff. But however you want to organize stuff, right? It's totally up to you how you like to organize things for your plan, what makes sense. By the way, if you don't need the buckets, don't bother. Like, look, I just need to have the basic tasks in here and know what we're doing. If you don't need to go any further than that, just deal with one bucket. But you can continue to create as many buckets as you want here. I don't think there's a limit to organize your tasks. Again, I would avoid creating buckets, even though I created one here called priority stuff. I would avoid creating lots of buckets for things that are already stored in the tasks, like who's doing what. As you're going to see, there's other easy ways to report that in Planner, as it is same with like the status here. So maybe that's not a good choice. Maybe I should have done this. Let's rename these, and I'll call this phase 1, and let's do this as phase 2. And since crowdsource a theme is something I need to do right away, let's move take a poll and research party vendors over here. See how easy this is? I can just, it's literally like just having index cards on a bulletin board. Or Susie, you'll remember this one, right? In the basement of our church when they would use the flannel boards with all the little shepherd characters and stuff, right? I always think of that. I don't know that anybody else had those, but there was always like this board and they had flannel on it, and these little pieces of paper had something funky on the back, and you could just move things around. I still remember that from church all those years ago, 40 years ago. I think of it that way, but anyways, it's just like index cards on a bulletin board. I can just move stuff around however I want. So buckets are one way to organize your tasks here into logical groups if that is something you feel the need to do. Question, so adding buckets for each team member is redundant if we're assigning them to the individuals anyways. Well, and think of how complicated that would get, Lori, because look at the tasks I've got here. These tasks are all assigned to multiple individuals. So what bucket am I going to put these tasks in if I make buckets for people? That's irrelevant. Rather, there are other ways in here for the groupings to see tasks by each person, and the people that view this, again, they're going to be able, if you're the plan owner, they're going to come into my tasks and only see the sign, they'll see the stuff that's assigned to them. And also, again, depending on notification settings, when you assign a task to somebody, they're going to get something in their email, as long as you're not a government client. That makes sense, Laurie? So yeah, I would totally avoid creating buckets like that for different people. Okay, I just think that's a bad idea. Currently, what we're doing is assigning each task to a single person and putting it in their bucket, which seems like doing it twice. Yeah, you are doing it twice. That's too much work. Yeah, don't do that. The buckets are more, I think more phase oriented for the buckets rather than personing, because a task can be assigned to more than one person. It's generally not as much seen as a task is going to be in multiple phases of a project. But you're also going to see here that there's another thing that you can do as far as organization, because not only do we have buckets to place our tasks into, we also have something called labels. So on any task here, if I actually open it up, if you look over here on the side, there are 6 labels. And the defaults are pink, red, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Literally the colors of the rainbow. And I can classify or organize my tasks with these labels. That's another way to do it. And I can customize the names that are on here. So like for right now, this says pink. Well, I could give that a different name just by clicking on it and calling it red, or let's call this magenta, or I don't know, let me give this a worthwhile category. Needs, I don't know, multiple. Whatever, however you want to categorize things, you can kind of create whatever categories you want. Whoops, what happened there? Oh, I got to click the check mark. There we go. Now you get these little tags or labels on each task, which can work across the buckets. So maybe I'm using the multiple flag for this task has multiple users, or maybe I want to use these for maybe certain companies have to get involved. I don't know what, there are a billion possibilities here. But what's nifty about this is that these can work across any bucket. So I could have, I could come over here to the research party vendors and look, see, the labels work across everything. So maybe this is also a task that has multiple users on it. I don't know, that's just an example. But it's yet another way to classify the tasks that you've got. Okay, maybe you want to use the labels for the phases, because maybe different different tasks are going to be part of different phases, and you want to use the buckets for the outside vendors that get involved. I mean, there are a million ways that you can do this. The best way to, the one key thing to think about though is a task can only be in one bucket, but a task can have multiple labels. Okay, so I can go to this task here and I can give it every label if I wanted to. I can give it the red, yellow, green. All I gotta do is click on the check marks, and it can have all of those. But I can't take this task and put it in multiple buckets. So that's the one difference between them. Otherwise, task organization really can be up to you when it comes to that. If you want to use labels to organize things, use your labels. You want to use buckets, use the buckets. You want to use both? Use both, right? It's a free-for-all here. We can eat the Reese cup however we want, because there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's. I'm not getting paid by them, by the way. I like chocolate. Chocolate is always a good bribe, especially dark chocolate. Okay? All right, any questions there about organizing my tasks? Buckets, it's easy to drag things around. The labels, you do have to go task to task to assign them, but how you choose to organize things here is really up to you as far as labels versus all that sort of stuff. Okay? All right, now let's start to look at, let's start to work across these menus that are up here. Under the members menu, now in this case, since I've already tied my plan to an existing group, members are already going to be on here. Okay, they're already people, there's already going to be stuff on here. I could also add people to the plan from there as well. Realize though, a very key thing to do is that if this is tied to a group and you add people to the plan, you're actually adding people to the group, which means any other group resources that is tied to that group, like Teams and SharePoint, that person's now going to have access to those. Okay, so there might be a little bit of a trade-off there. So be careful about that. If you have not tied your plan to a group and you're creating it on the fly, you might not need to worry about it. And again, you can click the drop down here, type in email addresses or people, and you can just add them from there. Okay, so you do have to have people, you want to have members for your plan. Okay, pretty easy there, not much to be said. Again, I would personally speaking, tie your plan to an existing group and manage your group membership from there. Okay, all right, let's take a look at these things, filter and group by. So under filter, what we can do here is that now that we start to build up tasks in our plan, we can start to apply filters to all the stuff that's listed here. And especially if this is a complex plan that might have maybe 50 different tasks in it, your screen may get very full. And you're like, okay, I only want to see this thing, or I only want to see that thing. Well, that's what the filter is for. And you can apply as many filters as necessary. So maybe I just want to see what are the tasks that are due next week. So if I select the next week filter, you'll see that right there, two tasks are due next week. Okay. You can apply with filters, you can apply as many of these as you want. Notice right now up on the filter thing, there is one filter applied. Okay, so maybe I want to see, okay, what is due next week? And let me just see things that are assigned to student 4. There. So now with these two filters, this is things that are due next week and assigned to student 4. So that's based on this filter here. All right, now if I want to clear that, there we go. I can take off all my filters. So you can filter by anything here. And by the way, these filters and group bys, as we get to it, appear everywhere, even in charts and in schedule. So you can, in any view, when we get to some of this stuff, you can filter and group by in any of the different screens. Let's take a look at the group by. With group by, I can also now view my tasks different ways. The default to view all my tasks is by bucket, okay? But I don't have to look at them that way. Do I want to see who things are assigned to? Do I want to see things by progress, due date, labels, and priority? So when I said earlier about don't use existing things for your buckets, here's what I was really meaning. I just had to get there first. I would highly discourage you from creating buckets that are for the people or for the different progress statuses or for the priorities. Why? It already exists. So if I now want to see, show me the tasks by who they're assigned to, now I can look here and I see a listing of every person, all right, that's got something assigned to them, and then the tasks appear in those different categories. So Lori, here you go. Here's your way to view who's assigned to what, okay, without having to build different buckets for it. And in this case, notice the task does appear in the different, under the different assignees, because tasks can be assigned to multiple people. And I could also maybe apply a filter here, all right? I don't need to see, I only want to see, certain people. All right, so you can combine filters and groups to make this look however you want. Maybe I want to group these by priority. There we go, there's the priorities. Unlike filters, you can only group by one choice. Filters, I can apply by every type of, I can apply as many filters as I want to filter things down. In group by, I can only group by one thing. That makes so much more sense to me than the way we've been doing it. Yay, yay, that's a win. I'll take that as a win, right? As long as, you know what? As long as people learn a little something, that makes me happy. So I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, you probably didn't know. And that's cool. That's okay. I love it when people go, wow, Scott just made my life easier. As opposed to, wow, Scott just made my life difficult, which I had to give that answer to somebody the other day. They were asking me about something with bullets and numbering and Word. And I'm like, well, I have a bad answer for you. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do it all over. Okay, moving on. So filters and grouping. I can apply as many filters to the stuff that I've got here. Groupings, I can only group by one thing. And again, kind of kicking back to the whole idea of buckets and labels, I would not do labels or buckets for things that already exist. So if you're not sure what kind of already exists in the scheme of things, look over here. But also look, I can group by the different labels. So now I've got all the different categories here, the multiple: red, yellow, green, blue, purple. Yes, unfortunately at this time, there are only 6 labels available. That is a current limitation. So you can't you can't have additional little flags over here. So you can't have gray and brown and chartreuse and ochre and green and purple and right. Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. I don't remember beyond that, but you're only limited to 6 labels at this point in time. Buckets, infinite number of buckets. Well, maybe not infinite. As many buckets as you want. You're limited to 6 labels. You can then view by those however you want here in your plan. Okay. All right. Let me go back to viewing by bucket. And let's take a look at a few other things that I can do with the tasks that are in my plan. So there is a 3-dot menu here on a lot of these, and a couple of these things are things that I can get to from the task itself. There's the whole business of the labeling, there's the whole business of assign, but we've got some other things here. Primarily, I think what's most interesting right now is this whole copy task. Let's say you spend a bunch of time creating a task and you're like, well, I kind of need a similar task in some of the other buckets, or I just need to assign these differently, or maybe it's the same task but I want to assign it to 2 different teams or 2 different groups of people, and whatnot. So rather than having to reinvent the wheel, you can just copy a task. So all you got to do is click the 3-dot menu and say copy task. Okay, and you just give the task a name. You can also, from here, interestingly enough, you can even copy tasks to other plans. Now, because this is tied to a group, all right, you can only copy to other groups that are associated that have these plans in here. So basically what I mean is here, this Friday Fiesta plan is tied to my demo group. So the only other plan that I could move these to is the demo plan. I do have a demo group and a demo plan. Sorry, I should probably name that something different. So I could copy this Friday Fiesta Research Party Vendors task. I could copy it to the demo plan if I wanted to, but I couldn't copy it to maybe another plan that might be tied to a completely different group, right? You can't move them across that way. I could also, while I'm doing the copying, save myself a little time and say, stick it in one of the other buckets. So why don't I go ahead and stick that in the phase 1 bucket? And then as part of that copy process, I can decide what things I do and don't want to copy from the existing task. So like right now, that task has a description, a checklist, attachment labels, and other things that are here. Maybe I just want to copy the subject and that's all I care about. Maybe I want to copy everything, all the things that are down here. Again, select whatever you want to select and then do the copy. So there we go. Now I've got a copy of that task somewhere else. It's a separate task. Remember, copy always means something separate. There are 2 different things. And now I saved myself a little bit of time. So if you do end up with or need to create several tasks that are similar, you can do it that way. Okay. Moving tasks is moving them between the buckets. Copying is I can move them between buckets. I can also move them between different plans tied to my current group. Okay. Any questions about that? All right. With the move command, basically you just drag things around. Okay, we already did that as far as moving between buckets. If you do want to do it by menu, you can go to the move task here. In this case, just like with copy, I could actually now move a task not only between buckets, but also between plans that are tied to the overall group, right? But realize this is a move. I think this is going to be, this is probably going to be more rare for doing, but it's possible. You can move a task across to another completely different plan. You can. I'm a bigger fan of copying just because I like to keep things where they originally were. I think the only reason to move something is like, oh, oops, I created this totally in the wrong plan and I need to move it over to the correct plan. Otherwise, I'm a bigger fan of copying stuff than moving stuff. Okay. Any questions about copying and moving of tasks? Okay. All right. Let's move on to then some of the other stuff that we've got available to us here when we are looking at the screens here. I'm just moving through my book here, making sure. Okay, there we go. So you've taken the time, you've created the plan, you've created a whole bunch of stuff here. What are some of the other things that we can do in relation to the overall plan? So let's work our way across the top up here. So first off, next to where it says Friday Fiesta, if you notice, there's a star. That's how to get your plan into the favorites category here. So if there are any plans that you would like to remain or stay in the favorites or pin, all you got to do is just click the little star and boom, there it goes. It moves from the recent section to the favorites, and it's always going to stay there. And these favorites and recent sections can both be expanded and collapsed. So if any section's getting kind of big and taking up a lot of space, you can expand and collapse them that way. Okay. There's a little information bubble right here, and I can click that. That's going to tell me some information about, just some general information about the plan. Again, this is tied to the group, so there's really not a lot to change from there. Okay, now if you need to change any of the other stuff about the plan, we'll get to that, but let's work our way across here. So next, let's talk tracking your plan's progress. Well, first off, there's basic things that you can do as far as tracking your plan's progress. I can come into any task, and there are things like the drop down here for progress. You know, there are the 3 values that we talked about earlier: not started, in progress, and completed. So maybe I'll mark that task as completed. Okay. Other things like writing stuff in the notes, writing stuff in the comments. That's all updates and progress that you might want to take advantage of. Your checklists, if you've done a checklist for the task, okay? These are all ways that you can track and manage. Now, notice that now that I've marked that task as completed, it's still on the board, but now so that it's kind of out of the way, since it's not really a task that I need to worry about, there is a show completed section here, which I can expand and collapse, right? If it's a done task, I don't really need to see it, but I have the option now to hide or show it for the stuff that that's going on. So that's a further way that I can deal with that stuff down there. Okay. Next up on the whole business of tracking our progress, we have things like the charts and the schedule. So let's first off take a look at charts. So when I come into the charts section, what I'm first off going to see is this is kind of like, this is a dashboard. First off, I'll tell you, you can't customize this in the sense that you can't kind of change the layout here. What you can do, as I'm going to show you here in a moment, is use the filters and the grouping bys to change certain things here to display stuff different ways. But overall, you can't add different reports and dashboardy things here. So that is a limitation. But again, I think for basic task management in your plan, this is going to be more than enough. So we've got 3 basic panels over here on the left-hand side, and that is a status, a thing for showing all of our buckets, and then priority. And then below that, the members, right? Okay. So status, just shows me the status of the tasks, and this is the not started, in progress. There is a 4th status that happens automatically called late. That is only going to show up if a task was supposed to be done by a certain date and nobody marked it as done. So there's a late there. Okay, I can hover over any of these and then get some information on that task. Okay, completed 1. Not complete. Oh, I guess I can't click that. I thought I could. Sorry, didn't mean to mislead you there. Okay, so I can isolate, highlight those parts, okay, and then click off of that. Next, in the buckets, I have something very similar. I can see in the buckets, if these buckets had different types of tasks in them, the lines would be those colors as well. So the line colors here also correspond with the circle colors over here. And this just shows me that in phase 2, both of the tasks there are not started, and one of them's in progress. Below that, a priority chart. Okay, again, using these same colors that are up here, they're going to be used down here in the 4 possible choices I had for priority. Then below that, I've got a listing of all the members, and again, using the same color scheme, I can see what tasks they've got. Okay, see how many things are assigned to them by this chart down here. Okay, and I can click on stuff and see what's there. Okay. All right. Oh, and as I was selecting those members, that was changing the charts up here. Sorry. Now over here on the side, also I can see more information about the things that I'm clicking on. Okay. And I can also, let me turn off the filters that I've got here. Let's clear all those filters. Okay. Notice that as I'm selecting stuff here, hold on. Is that updating or not? Okay, but I can also overall, with all the stuff that I'm seeing here, I can apply filters and buckets. So if I want to only see, for instance, future, let me apply the future. Dun, da, da. That sounds so funny. Now with that filter applied, my whole dashboard changes because this is only the stuff that's for the future. Maybe I want to see, let's come here and clear those. Let's clear that and say I want to see stuff that is, where is the, do I have the priority ones in here? What am I looking for? Due, late tomorrow, this week. Where's the progress? Let me open up these different categories. Maybe it's not there. Oh, okay, never mind. That's over here under the group by. I'm looking at the wrong place. Priority. Anyways, I can use the same filters and groupings that I had over here in the board to affect this dashboard that I've got here. Again, unfortunately, you can't customize this to a certain degree, and there's no way to really export this as a report to give to maybe your boss. The closest thing you could do is a screenshot, but with this here, I can't export this picture and give it to anybody, unfortunately. Okay. There's some other things that we can do that I'll get to. All right, next we've got schedule. So let's click on the schedule. Let's click on schedule. There we go. In the schedule, now again, I've got a calendar here that's showing me the different due dates for things, and I can click on those different tasks and get information right from its calendar. I can also then apply, again, the same filters and grouping by groups over here to kind of affect, to change what I see over here on the other side. So if I just want to see, let's see here, right now I've got urgent, let's go to completed. Oh, sorry. I want to go up here to filter. I want to see anything that's in the next week. Okay. And, oh, sorry, I got to go to the week view. All right, well, I've got a week view and a month view. Oh, that's why it's group by. Sorry, I got too many things going on at once. Like, I need to pay attention to what I'm doing here. There, now there's my filter, due next week. Okay, so those are my two ones that are due next week. They're showing there up on the calendar. You probably won't use this stuff as much over here on the calendar. Now, a question you probably are already thinking, like, can this schedule show up in other places? Sure, it can show up in Outlook. Okay, this schedule can be accessed by way of Outlook, so that people maybe can, so you can see. Now, it will be a separate calendar. Okay, this is not going to merge with your calendar because there's lots of other people involved. Also, what has to happen first is that the owner of the plan has to publish it. So that leads me, ta-da, to this, the next three-dot menu, because there's actually lots of other things that I can do with my plan. So let me go down to the bottom of the menu, since we're talking about calendars, and talk about add plan to Outlook calendar. So if I select that, what I first need to do is publish this calendar to Outlook. And what that's going to do is basically, again, coming back to this whole idea of Office 365 groups, is that because we can use, that whole connection through groups, we can now publish this calendar over into Outlook by way of the group, and now have it show up over in Outlook. So what I can do is say, okay, go ahead and publish that. And then I'm going to say add to Outlook. Now there's a big long link here that you can also, that you would use, but I'm just going to say add to Outlook right now. And that's going to launch into the Outlook web client. And then I'm going to get a little pop-up here. All right, paste the URL. The stuff's going to be there. That's fine. Do I want to give it a name? Do I want to give the calendar a particular color? Let's put it into other calendars. Let's import that. Ooh, do I need a charm? No, okay. And basically now that I published it, now it's going to show up. So I've successfully imported the calendar. And so now when I look at my calendars here, look, there it is. Once I've done that as the owner, now other people will be able to go into the plan and they can add it. So if people are looking for add plan to Outlook calendar and they don't see it, it's one of two things. Either A, the owner didn't publish it, or B, you're on the government side and that feature doesn't work on the government side yet, unfortunately. The quick rule of thumb here as far as government versus commercial when it comes to a planner right now is that all the features that are related to Outlook, like email notifications and calendar, don't work. Hopefully at some point they'll catch up and those things will be possible. There's other things that we can do here that if I had more time, I would get all into them here. Actually, I'm sorry, yeah, let's do a few other things. I do have time to get a few things. All right, let's go to plan settings. So most of this is this stuff that we did way back at the beginning, such as the name of the plan and its group and so on and so forth. But there's another thing that we have here. Send email to the group when a task is assigned or completed. Now, by default, people, again, if you're on the commercial side, people are going to be notified when they get a task. If you're on the government side, it doesn't work yet. But I could also have that go to everybody by turning on the group email settings. Now, be very careful about that because that could generate more emails than the people in your group might want. But it also might be a way for everybody to stay up on what's happening, okay? But be very careful about that. Users themselves can set their settings, and I'll get to that in a few moments. But if you as the owner want to do that, you could turn that on, and then if people start complaining, you could come in here and turn it off, okay? You can also from here delete the plan, okay? Now, be careful about this. So let me just talk about this for a second. If the plan is tied to an existing group that's already being used in other places, when you delete the plan, that's not going to affect any other group, okay, the Office 365 groups. But every resource tied to the plan does go away. If, however, your plan, you built a new group based on the plan and that group's not being used anywhere else, when you delete the plan, it deletes the group, okay, because it's not needed anymore, okay? Keep that in mind. Again, maybe you might not want to delete it if you don't really need to, okay? All right, so there we are, some settings about the plan, and yes, I can change its name. All right. What else on here do I want to get to right now? None of them. All right, so what I do want to do is let's go over to some of the settings. So if you're an individual person, maybe you're not the owner, you can set at least a few things about Planner from over here. So let's go to basically the Planner notifications. So let me click on notifications. You can at least, as somebody who is part of being part of plans and being included, you can decide what types of emails or notifications that you'd like to get. So first off, have Planner send me notifications when someone assigns a task to me. You'll notice that it will do email, Teams, and mobile push. So what that means is you can get an email. If the plan is tied to a group, an existing group, and that group has a team, you can get notifications over in your activity feed over in Teams. And mobile push, that means if you've got the Planner app on your phone, you can get notified on the app that a task has been assigned to you, right? Unfortunately, it's a all or nothing there. You can either say, I get it and I get it in all three, or I don't get any at all. But I can't just say, well, I only want email, I only want this, I only want that. It's all or nothing. Secondly, when a task assigned to me is late, due today, or due in the next 7 days, that happens to be an email only one. And that could be for you weren't on a task, but now you got added to it and it's, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. No. Let me back up. That is the task assigned to me, okay, I just had to read my English there. It's a task I'm assigned to, but I basically am going to get a reminder about it. Okay, so it's late, it's due today, or in the next 7 days. That will also generate emails. You may or may not want to turn that one off. That's up to you. But in this case, those only do an email because there's other mechanisms and other places to look for stuff. So that's some stuff I can set there. All right. Again, on the government side right now, the last time I checked, all of that stuff still doesn't work. There is a way around that with Power Automate. There's a few things you can get around right now, which is odd, but there is a few ways to implement Power Automate to kind of get around the notification limitations on the government side. But on the commercial side, you don't have to worry. It all works. Okay. See schedule, mark plans as favorites. I'm looking through my materials, making sure I did all that. Delete a plan. Oh, copy a plan. One last thing. All right. Let's say, just like with the, you've done all this work here, maybe you need another plan that's similar to this one. You can, again, if you're the owner, go to that three-dot menu and we can go to copy plan. That is going to basically take all the information from the plan and copy it to a new plan. So I could give it a new name. I can set either private or public. I can set other options for that plan, and I can make a whole copy of that. So if you kind of need to, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, you can do that from copy plan. Lastly, as far as features up here is the export plan to Excel. If, as I showed you with the charts and the schedules and everything else that's there are limitations. This is not meant to do, the planner is not meant to do everything. And that's on purpose. So because of that, at least though we can get the data out to other places. So if I want to, I can actually take all the plan data, I can export it to Excel, and it's basically just going to create a basic Excel file that then I will, let's just do a save. And then I could open that up, and I don't remember where I saved that to. Oops. Did I save that to OneDrive or did I save that local? I was not paying attention. Let's do this again. Let's do export plan to Excel. All right, let's do save as. Okay, yeah, I don't want to save it to there. Let's save it to downloads. All right. Oh, it did save it to my downloads directory. Good. All right, now I can go over to downloads. And, oops, I've got all these overlapping windows over here on the other side. And let's open that up real quick. There we go. And you're going to get a basic kind of ugly export, but you can then take all this information that's here and you can build a pivot table or a chart or anything that you want to off of that information that's here. Right? It's not going to be perfect, but it is a way to get around if there are other reports and things that you'd like to create. You just get a basic, just that basic business there. Okay? All right, let's come back over to this and let's go to here. So we are just about at the end of where we want to be here with Planner. So as you can see, in some ways it's pretty powerful, but in other ways it's pretty simple. And that's on purpose. Also keep in mind with Planner, this is meant to be used in a group setting. If you need just something for tracking your own personal tasks, you can either use Outlook tasks or, again, if you have access to it, it depends. Again, in the government space, we don't have it yet, but there is yet another app in here. It's called Microsoft To Do. And Microsoft To Do is basically a task tracker for you, for a person. It is related to Planner and ish and related to Teams and so on and so forth, but it works it works differently, and maybe we'll do another class on that. Planner also ties into Teams. That'll be probably another class that I might do at some point. This is the intro. There is still a lot more stuff that you can do here, and maybe in an advanced class we'll get into those, or maybe like a tied-in class. But again, if a lot of you are in a corporate environment and you're using Teams, you may want to incorporate plans into your Teams, and that is an excellent way to do things, and it's designed to do that, and we can get into those things at another time. So coming back to here, so hey, you know what? If you need some additional training and learning about Planner, oops, let me advance my slides here. You can always go to support.office.com and just click on the planner link. You may have to go to all apps and then click on a planner from there because it's usually not on the front page, but you can find a lot more information about planner. Again, for you government folks, recognize that you're going to find information there that doesn't apply to you. You're a bit more tech-minded, you can go to docs.microsoft.com and you can find out a lot more technical details about Planner in general. As far as me personally, well, of course, those of you that are attending today, you're welcome to go to other YouTube videos and watch. If you're already watching this on YouTube, well, there you go. You can watch some of the other videos that I've got there. If you'd like to stay on top of what's new, what's coming, what trainings do I have scheduled, jump over to Facebook and look for the Beardy MCT. That's my little brand right now, I guess. And you can join that group. That's a public group on Facebook. Anybody can join it. Anybody can go to the events. So please feel free to share the training events and the information that's on that group with your friends, your coworkers, and so on and so forth. That's why I'm doing all this stuff, is to get it out there and help educate people on how to use these things. So please feel free to join that. So that is all for this recording. For those of you that are on the call, stick around for a few moments. We'll go into Q&A. But for those of you that are watching this, thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in yet another class or recording. Oops. And I meant to stop the recording.